us on this SAG-AFTRA live stream on YouTube. To stay informed about all of our live stream and video events, we invite you to subscribe to this channel, SAG-AFTRA on YouTube. You can go ahead and do that right now. Today, we present the President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement live stream, Audition Tips for Parents and Young Performers, in partnership with the Casting Society of America. We'll be pausing throughout as our interpreters, Mara Bassani Santa Maria and Risa Rojas, will be trading off as they translate today's program into American Sign Language. As a reminder, the program is being recorded and you can watch the replay right here on SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel, along with more great content anytime. Now, please give a warm welcome to today's host, SAG-AFTRA President, Gabrielle Carteris.
Thank you, Pam. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy New Year. I hope that this new year is going to be a healthy one and a hopeful one for everybody. So anyway, today we are here with, I think, a really fabulous discussion. We're joined by some of our esteemed industry colleagues. I'm incredibly excited about today's topic. It's audition tips for parents and young performers, as Pam said. This is actually a program I wish had been available during the time I was starting off in the business, but I'm glad that we're able to offer it here. We're going to chat with leading casting professionals who are going to offer parents of minors, tweens, and teens some incredibly helpful tips, best practices for self-submitting, self-taping and live video audition tapes to help break through the clutter and get noticed, not only get noticed, but hopefully get work. Before we kick off, I want to also say thank you to all of our panelists who are here and our partners from the Casting Society of America, otherwise known as C.S.A. We have Sunny Bowling, Jenny Liu, and Rich Mento. They are the ones who helped to make the magic for today and bring it to fruition and putting this program together. So thank you. We're very grateful for your partnership, very meaningful to our members. I also want to just take a moment to introduce SAG-AFTRA's Executive Vice President, Rebecca Damon, who's going to be a part of this program today. Thank you for being here, Rebecca. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Happy New Year.
So nice to see everybody. Some of these are my old friends. Anyway, I think there's going to be a lot to learn from today's discussion. I'm happy to introduce our guest moderator today. We have with us Monika Mikkelsen. Monika is California native, very few of us around, but she's one of those. She graduated from UCLA, has been involved in casting ever since she graduated. She's been mentored by the intimate Heidi Levitt. Monika also learned what casting is all about in a high profile features such as films that you've seen, Nixon, The Rock, The $1 Million Hotel. As an independent casting director, she's worked on a variety of international as well as American films. You'll know them as the Disappearance of Eleanor Rigby, otherwise known as Him and Her and Them, Cleaner, The Devil's Rejects, Lords of Salem, Things I Never Told You, Nurse Betty, and the precious independent treasures that live long and prosper in the festival world, like All God's Children Can Dance, Love Liza, Gravy, Learning to Drive. After spending 5 years as a VP for Paramount Pictures, overseeing their live action animated feature films, Monika moved into animation full-time in 2020, a great part of our industry. She's now casting the films of Paramount Animation and learning all about the power of the voice. Monika, thank you so much for being here. We're so happy that you're going to be leading us today. It's an incredibly important conversation. So let me pass it to you.
Oh my. Well, hello, everybody. You have some rock stars to contend with today. We are not messing about. These casting directors know their stuff.
That's right.
So listen, we have 4 casting directors that know everything. We are going to start off with Kim Williams because it's Kim. Kim and I work together at Paramount. We have gone through many kids in terms of casting sessions. She is a superstar. She can read, she can act, she can direct people. I mean, it's serious. She now works at Disney and ABC television, and she's in charge of things, and she's very, very knowledgeable. So just get ready, okay? Then there's Howard Meltzer. We can't even get into it. There's too much. It's just, he's a legend. Everybody in town knows him. You've watched the shows that he's cast. It's insane. Hannah Montana what? 4 gajillion episodes. I don't even know what I would do without Miley Cyrus in my life, and I blame Howard. That's how it is. Then there's Krisha, sweet mother Krisha. Not only do we attend weddings together in storm-ridden Mexico, but she also worked on one of my all-time favorite shows, Degrassi, The Next Generation. I love that show. She's also the spirit animal of Dan Schneider, who created, I think, all of Nickelodeon's programming. I'm not sure, but there's Krisha. Then we have the precious baby treasure that is Suzanne Goddard-Smythe, responsible for School of Rock in terms of Paramount Television. So that's how I met Suzanne. Amazing credits, so good, so kind and thoughtful with the kids that she brings in. And I think I have to say, of the 4 people we're talking to today, they really care about the people they see. They're respectful and thoughtful, and they give great direction to the young people that come in and audition and want to get the job. So please meet your panelists. Here they are. They are delicious, precious treasures. I don't even know how to start. I mean, Krisha, I'm going to throw it to you just to say, you recently, based on working from home, self-tapes have become hugely important.
Yes.
How do you even begin to make people feel comfortable? Do you Zoom with them beforehand? How do you process your self-tapes?
We have been most recently starting with the self-tapes from home, and then there's a following up when we're doing a secondary casting of either Zoom or EcoCast Live. There's a couple of other platforms that are attempting to get as strong and good as Zoom has been, but Zoom has been the one that we have mostly stuck with. It seems to be the most reliable right now. But self-taping is just going to be the way it's going to be for the next while till we can get this COVID thing under control. And I think one of the things that I would like to mention for people who are self-taping is the slate. The slate used to be just a way to acknowledge who you were and maybe give us a little bit of information. And now with self-taping, I think it's even more important in the slate to add a little bit of your personality into the slate, because that's going to be everybody's introduction to you. When you used to come in the room, we would have a little chit chat and we would get to know you as a person. Now we don't have that opportunity in the self-taping world. So it would be a great thing for young people to remember that the slate is your introduction. So it shouldn't necessarily just be rote, hi, my name is, very flat, but to give it some personality, maybe even throw in a little tidbit about yourself or what you're happy for that day or grateful for that day. Give us a little bit of something extra.
Do you all like to know, like just a show of hands, who asks the actors to give their height? Okay, everybody. So height and name.
Name, age, if they're under 18.
Okay.
Very important. If you're over 18, do not.
Just say over 18.
If you're over 18, we're not supposed to know.
Right, so you're an adult and
you don't tell us your age. But if you're under 8, it's so important to name, age, date of birth, height, and maybe even doing a head to toe so we can see it from head to toe. It really helps.
Right.
Don't you guys think?
Absolutely. I also think what city they're currently residing in is important because we've got quarantine things to worry about now.
City and state. Because sometimes, I know we were doing a session for something, a local show in Los Angeles, and we really needed somebody in Los Angeles or in this area because of COVID. We couldn't have them fly in and out. And we had said that when we sent it out to the agents, but people were still going on tape who were in Texas or Tennessee or somewhere else, and we couldn't, have them because we couldn't have that issue of them flying in with COVID going around. So it's very important to know the guidelines when you do audition about where you, letting them know where you are, and if there's going to be an issue about that too, for an episodic per se, you know.
Even for the crafty parents that have a family member that lives in Los Angeles, they should be ready to be in LA physically 2.5 weeks before anything. Right. So that they can
have to
cover
have that
whatever
quarantine.
quarantine shutdown might occur.
Mhm.
Right.
But it's the whole thing about flying. I mean, a lot of people are very nervous about, at least my producers have been very nervous about somebody's going to fly in.
Mm-hmm.
It really opens up the world to being infected, is how they feel. So they really don't want anybody flying in without definitely, and hiring somebody and then they're coming in. It's tricky on episodic, at least I find.
Even just, I had a situation just a couple weeks ago where I got a quickie SOS from a independent feature who had hired a child who was outside of Los Angeles, and the test that the child took just the day before they were flying showed that he was positive, and they were shooting. Had already started shooting the film. So it was an SOS to find a child in 24 hours to replace the lead child.
Yeah. Ooh, the lead. Oh, Krisha.
Instructions, like when you're putting out your requests, like Kim, for example, you're putting out your request for self-tapes. They goes out to the actors that are on Actors Access and on the agencies and managers breakdowns. Do you then have a space of time where they can ask questions about the instructions? Do you have that kind of time frame? Like what kind of time? I guess I should ask each one of you, like, how is your time frame planned?
For me, it depends on the project. Some projects I have a little more lead time than other projects. But yes, there is always that opportunity, and I encourage that if you have questions to, submit your questions, and we're always looking for, responses from people, whatever it is, confirming they're not available or any questions or issues that somebody might have. Absolutely.
And it's okay to ask your associate or your assistant for those answers as well, yeah?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Krisha, would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, I do the same thing. Sure.
And then do you put out sort of specific instructions in terms of order of scene or how many scenes, or if they want to do a monologue? Have people volunteered extra? Howard, anything?
Yeah, we put out pretty specific taping instructions on how we want everything from your slate and your lighting and your secure internet connection, all those things that we're going to ask for. And usually if it's for episodic and I don't ask actors to prepare more than one scene and I tell them which scene I prefer them to read, it just gives me a quick sense of who they are. Then we'll do another session and I'll be able to work one-on-one with them. For the most part, I've been using EcoCast Live and it's been very smooth, and it's great because I can keep a history of every actor's audition, which I find helpful.
Oh, that's great. Now, what happens if you've put out some appointments and for some reason the parent or guardian feels that the child isn't necessarily right? They pass on the opportunity. Is that something that you find will harm that actor's chances in the future for other auditions? Does a pass bother you, Suzanne? Like, what do you?
No,
how do you
not at all. I understand there could be various reasons why a parent or the actor feels the need to pass. They don't connect with the material. They don't want to travel during COVID. They don't want to be out there in the world right now. All sorts of reasons. And, you will see them again when they're available.
If you like them, you like them.
Yeah.
It's not like you're not going to turn on them in any way.
No. Right? And sometimes, you come into our offices a lot and maybe you don't get the job, but we like you. You wouldn't be continuing to come in if we didn't like you. So, and sometimes
a lot of actors.
Yeah. And I know we all kind of help these kids too. I mean, we try to help nurture them. And because a lot of them, they're just starting out, and like with adult actors too, but you want to help them grow, and having them come in and do their pre-reads, and all of a sudden it clicks and this is the role for them, or you really see their work coming and understanding of character and roles and who they are and how they connect with different material. It's exciting. So no, we love seeing these kids over and over.
Monika, may I add to that?
Yes, of course.
So, sometimes kids will pass because perhaps they're not exactly the description which we had in the breakdown, but a few things could have happened. We might have done a couple of weeks of casting, and they we it just changed and evolved. We want to see someone younger, we want to see someone older, or very often, and I think this might be true for definitely for Suzanne and Krisha and Kim. Let me know if you agree or disagree. We think outside the box. We come up with ideas. We'll read the script, and we might hear a certain. That's what I do. I'll be reading a script, and I'll be like, I could hear an actor's voice.
Mhm.
So there could be someone who's 5 years off of the age that I put out, but I just really feel this actor or actress is right and will make the material fly. And that's the fun part of casting. So sometimes if actors do pass, we might get on the phone with the agent and say, I know this is what the breakdown says. Will they come in anyway, or will they tape anyway?
Yeah, there's follow-up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that goes with male, female. Sometimes we try a different sex. It may say it's Kathy, but we want to see Chris, a guy. So we do that as well. So yes, exactly what you said, Howard. Outside the
And
box.
then leaving space again for the actor to come back to you and say, are you sure? Because I'm a different gender. And then they say, oh no, that's okay.
Yes.
Good times.
Often happens.
What about if you've read an actor and you love that actor? Like I have a strange habit of loving an actor to pieces, and then they don't kill it that day. So I'm like, I'm gonna try it one more time.
Yeah.
And I'm sneaky and I just have them come in just one more time because I love them. Does that happen often? Do you feel like, I think a lot of actors get really nervous that if they don't deliver 100% perfection, that you will never forgive them as casting directors and that you'll hold it against them. And I so want to tell these actors, and certainly people today, I don't. I don't think y'all do, but I just wanted you to be able to speak to it.
And I think as kids, particularly, they learn and grow so quickly that one off day could be who knows what. They got a bad grade on their math test, and then they had to self-tape, and they don't feel great, or it's too quick and they weren't fully memorized, and so they're beating themselves up a bit. Or if they're during COVID and mom and dad are being extra hard on them because it's a self-tape and they're not in our room with us where we can give them a little bit of notes. I think all those things come into play. And it's the same with me. I have a bad day, and I hope people still will want to work with me the next day. So
like Kim, what happens when you have a young, let's say a young actor's in the room reading with you and they're trying to remember something and they sort of leave their body and they're like, oh no, I meant to say this. Oh no, I meant to say this. Like, do you start from the beginning? Do you take a minute? Do you let them just sort of, let's reschedule them later? How do you deal with it?
Yeah, again, I think it's an in the moment kind of thing, because some kids can recover in the moment and you can restart or pick up where they sort of dropped off. Others, it's that snowball effect where they just can't get it back together. And I'm always happy to see people, again, and, Monika, you and I are very similar in that way, in that I'll see actors that I just love and believe are right for the role, and am often sneaky as well, and bring them back in. And, oftentimes they will ultimately get the role, which is always really exciting. And to the first part of your question, the other part I will say is, I am rooting for every actor I see. I literally want every actor I see to be this role and to get this job. So just know I'm advocating and working on your behalf. I'm team whoever you are, either when you're self-tape, I'm watching your self-tape, or you're coming in live to the room or into the Zoom. Like, I want you to get this job as much as you want to get this job. So.
And then if you have like a Zoom session, for example, right? And now with the technology, we're able to have these waiting rooms, and then all of a sudden it's like go time. What do you recommend the actor does in that downtime? Like when they're in the waiting room, but they're in their kitchen, and all of a sudden it's like, go. Like, what is a good tip that you all four, I would say, I would just offer, like Suzanne, if you wanted to start, what do you suggest they do? Like, should they be like a little mini dance while they're in the waiting room? Just to keep their energy?
You do want to keep your energy up. but you want to make sure that your connection is good. You want to make sure, actually, kind of the technical aspects of it. It's important that we can see you, hear you, the clarity. We've had sessions, Zoom sessions or EcoCast live sessions where the links just weren't good. I mean, we just couldn't, not the links, the connection wasn't good. And we really couldn't hear or see or whatever it was, that we have to then have the actor put themselves on tape and send it to us, which is fine. That's fine too. Right. It has to happen quickly in that kind of situation if we're doing episodic. But that's okay. But you just got to make sure your technical stuff, I think, number one. And yeah, keep your energy up. It's different world doing this as opposed to being live. So you want to make sure you're ready and prepared.
And if the technology isn't working, just be able to just brush it off.
Yes.
Self-tape.
We're not mad. We're not mad. We get it. We have it too. I've gone down and had to come right back up on stuff, you know?
Monika, actually, I found that kids are easier about it because they know technology way better than the adult actors. So like,
really?
I felt like there was like a 10-year-old girl and her Wi-Fi wasn't working on her mother's laptop. And then for EcoCast Live, we sent them back to the waiting room, and then she came back again and she was on her phone, and it was like she was bing, bing, bing. No big deal to her. But reiterating everything Suzanne said, and it is shocking that there are so many people who are not aware that they don't have a secure internet connection. And when we started doing casting back in the series that I'm on in September, my associate and I were like, how can they not know they have horrible Wi-Fi? I can't believe this is their first Zoom ever. And we can't fix that for you. And we can't help your nerves at that moment. And when we say just relax, we'll do it again, we'll look at your tape, but try to do a trial run ahead of time.
Oh, that's a good idea. Like there are like family friends that you can do a dry run with.
Yeah, totally. We've said all those things as well. And one of the other things that I've been trying to encourage people to think of is right now, while we're all home, you're not spending the same amount of time and energy and money. So it might be time to upgrade your internet. It might be time to invest in a better camera, better lighting type of a situation. And I've been also encouraging people to think of having a Zoom audition space that's just designated, either that can quickly go up or come down, or it just lives up a little corner of your home, your space that becomes a space for both self-taping and for Zooming that has, because it will work for both, but you need to be available. You need to have the availability for the camera to rise if you're going to be standing. So if it's a sitting Zoom situation, that's one thing, but if you're standing, you also need books or a tripod or whatever, boxes, whatever you can jerry-rig in your home to have the camera be at the right height and have a backdrop that's appropriate. I like to remind everybody that casting directors easily distracted, very, very easily distracted by anything that might be going on behind you. If there's a picture or a word that's behind your head, 100%.
Grandma.
I'm trying to figure it out.
That's one of my favorite was her grandma was sitting right behind her.
Yep.
And not just the casting director that's distracted by those things. It would be the entire team that would potentially be watching the Zoom or the self-tape. Because we also, we're most likely recording the Zooms as well, so that we can reference them later. So all of those things that Krishna just said, exactly.
I think for most of us, we're very generous in we know this is not, as I've said to actors when we're doing a Zoom, this is not live television. We're not broadcasting this. We could fix it and make it better. But there are little things you can do. Krisha's advice about having a little designated space and making sure there aren't things distracting as we're watching it. But there are so many people that will be watching their self-tape, and I just want to say to them, could you have made your bed? Could you just make it neat?
I made my bed.
That's very good. And it sounds silly, but I don't think I'm
Right. And also with the sitting and standing options,
That was just what I was going to say.
you usually explain why you want them sitting or standing. But if an actor, for example, can reach out and ask you, are you okay if I sit for this audition or stand? If it's not specified, that's okay. Yeah.
The whole point, I think, is energy.
Yeah.
Right. And oftentimes, and it's a funny element within this world that we all now have on the Zoom. But in the room, when I would have auditions, I always like the actors to stand because it creates an energy. Because when they sit, sometimes it just sits all your energy back and you're just too comfortable and not prepared. So it's up to you, it's up to the actor, but I've always find that standing really helps the actor for their energy, and that's a big part of this.
What about eye line? Do you like people looking right into the camera? Or like I am not an actor, so I'm looking at your faces like, oh, delightful, which probably doesn't help my audition.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, just the reader, and the reader should be directly beside the camera, just as they would
As
if they were
close to
coming
this
into
as
our-
possible.
Yeah, so I always say, I mean, I'm looking right into the camera right now, so it would be
Yeah.
just ever so slightly to the right or to the left, but right beside where the camera is, and you want to have, you want to be framed correctly. My favorite auditions ever were these.
For these.
Awesome.
Like, we need to see you. It's a visual medium, television, remember? We have to see your face.
Oh. And your reader, so you bring up the reader. A really good point. Now, does your reader have to be Royal Shakespeare Company?
No.
Do they have to
No, please.
be loud and steal the scene from you?
No,
How do you, what are you looking for? What is the best advice you can give an actor self-taping with a reader?
Okay.
Tell the reader to keep it quiet.
You just want to be easy and clean and clear. Look, there's two ways to do it. We can read with them if we're doing it on Zoom, right? Which
Yeah.
I always find it helps me with their focus often. But a lot of actors, and I can kind of help guide them sometimes in their readings when you're reading with somebody. But also sometimes there's a lag. So when we have executives on, I want to make sure there is no lag, that if they've got a reader in their space, that's better. And yes, it has to be somebody that's kind of just a little to the side and we see them playing the scene. Because right in this framing, you're creating your world, the scene that you're presenting. So we need to feel that world to you. Is it cold? Is it warm? All the elements of acting in a scene. So where you're looking is going to be a big part of it. And the reader, if they are there with you, it can't be this, it can't be Shakespeare. It takes away from the actor. So you just want to make sure, if you're not an actor reading with an actor, that you want to make sure you've got somebody that's just easy and gets the lines to you, and you can emote off of that. Is what I find. Because there's been some pretty scary, funny readers that kind of distract.
Well, I say the same thing about the reader as I do your backdrop. Anything that pulls focus away from what we should be paying attention to, which is you and your audition, shouldn't be happening.
Exactly.
Okay. And now let's say you really believe that your son, your daughter really is perfect for this part, but they're not connecting to the material. They're not getting it. You're the mom, you're the dad, you're the uncle, you're the cousin. Like, you're just like, no, you got this. You got this. And they're rehearsing it and they're super into it. But the actor themselves is like, I don't care. I don't see it. Is that a good time for that actor to maybe pass? Or is that maybe like, do you ever, I'm trying to think of an example where we had a young actor that we simply knew was perfect and he was like not getting it or she was not feeling it, but it's not, because I think it's so obvious and so you can see it if they don't connect.
Yeah, may I jump in, Monika?
Yes, of course, my God.
sometimes this is more of an example of what happens when you let's say the example is this happened in 2019. This is not a 2020 story, but sometimes in the summer when we do auditions during the day, I would see kids come in and they look miserable, and my associate would say to me, my God, she looks like she doesn't want to be here. And I'm like, I'm sure she'd rather be with her friends and go to camp. So if there's a period of time where an actor, actress, young, old, feels they need to want to take a break from the professional part of the industry, you should let them take a break. And if they look like they rather be with their friends or doing other things, you should let them do that. It comes through. And we're all savvy enough, and I'm sure we don't write the same notes, but we'll just say, like, I'll write a note and I'll just say, didn't want to be here today, or just not the right match for the role, and we just move on. But if it's someone we truly feel passionate about, we probably will call the agent or the manager and ask and find out what's going on.
And sometimes the kids just need a break from it. And then, I mean, I know I remember on one project, I brought this little girl in and I knew she should be right, but she just couldn't connect. We tried some stuff. I was like, okay, I'll remember you down the line. A couple weeks later, I said, let's try her again. Let's have her come back. She ended up booking the series. I mean, it's just a timing thing with a lot of people and finding the reconnection to the material.
Have you ever directed any actors to work with an audition coach or a specific acting coach for a part when you're like, I believe in this child? Like, do you send them to an acting class maybe for a couple classes and then try again? Has that ever happened?
Go ahead, Howard.
Oh, no, you go, Suzanne.
Oh, well, I like to work with the actors, so it's something that I will do with them. I'm assuming a lot of them already are in class because that's your tool. So you always want to be studying to understand and be able to use your tools to the best degree that they can, which is everything about you. So I just assume that they're doing that. If they have a coach, sometimes I'll ask a coach and talk to them, but sometimes it's just about the work that you can get with them in the room, because sometimes the coaches don't necessarily aren't, and not all of them, of course, aren't on the same page with you. I know, Krisha, you work with some very closely.
I have worked with some coaches, and they'll call sometimes and say, I'm looking at this material and I'm working with this child. Where are you going with this? And sometimes I've actually I've asked the young actors after their audition, who did they coach with? And then I'll call that coach and let them know that they're steering them down a path that's either not working, or if you're working with any more kids, can you think more along these lines? I think that coaches can be helpful and can really help the kids get where they need to go, as long as it isn't just for the audition, and that it's actually for the role as a whole, because I've seen that happen too.
There are some actors that will come in and they gave a great audition when they're in our office and we pre-read them, and then they come in for producers and it's like they're giving a totally different performance. So then we'll call the manager or the agent and just say, did you send them to a coach? Because that's not what we wanted. We wanted what happened in the room. We're usually we have day-to-day with agents and managers. If there's a callback, there are agents that will pick up the phone and say, how'd they do? And I'll say, they did great. That's why they're getting a callback. And they'll say, do you want them to do anything differently? And I will. Sometimes the material, let's say I'm casting a role and it's an 8-year-old girl, and there are a lot of words in it. And maybe there are things that it'll be more, not the reading level that she might be in at 8 years old. So I might say, you need to work with a coach so they understand the words that are coming out of the character's mouth, because right now it just sounds like a book report. They're just reading. So there's all different ways of finessing it, and we'll just keep saying this over and over. We want you to get the part. We want you to be great. We want you to. I'm gonna backpedal. We want you to feel great about the audition. We want you to, when you come in, you felt like you gave, and it was a good experience for both of you, for everyone in the room. And if you get the part, that's great. And if you don't, Suzanne, Krisha, Kim, they will remember you for something else.
Right, because the job is actually the auditioning. The booking the role is dessert.
Yeah.
The work of an actor is going in again and again and again and getting to know the material and being flexible in the room. And oh, wardrobe, props. How do you guys feel about that? Like if it helps an actor to be dressed like Harry Potter and have a, oh no, a wand. Just not the word. If it helps the actor to have the wand and the cape, but do you recommend that, or is it distracting in the room, or does it depend? I don't know, Kim.
I think it depends. I tend not to like costumes and props because they're often used as crutches and it distracts from the actual audition and digging into the material.
Like they're hiding behind it a little?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then that becomes the focus, the wand, the phone, the cape, or whatever the thing is, rather than, you know, the character. But there are times, but we are very specific about if we want, you know, a specific wardrobe or props to be used, but I'm usually against it.
Okay. Krisha, how you feel?
I totally agree. I usually am against it, except for the phone.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a phone now, nobody needs to do this anymore.
Definitely not.
They can actually hold their phone as long as it's turned off or on silent or whatever. And I feel like the phone has become an extension of young people. So they know how to hold the phone, use the phone, and still connect. Most other props pull them away from the connection to the material because they're worried about it and they haven't used it enough in rehearsal when they're practicing at home. I find that they sort of throw it in at the last second as a bit of a crutch as well. And then they're futzing with it instead of connecting. The phone is the only full exception. I say, if there's supposed to be a phone in the scene, please hold a phone.
Well, then, Suzanne, I'm going to twist it on you and say, it's a young actor wearing a hat, and you ask that actor to take off the hat. Is that typical, or do you actually let the hat stay? Like, hats make me crazy.
Well, I
So
think
it's a
during the
personal thing
slate,
that I'm
we'll
like,
probably.
tell me what you think.
Well, I think during the slate, that's when, if the actor were in the room, I would say, oh, could you take off your hat? Let's slate you. If it's something they think is character, it can go back on. But if not, you know, I'd say, I don't know if this is one that has the hat. Maybe we'll do a take with it, but let's try it without it. You know, I just want them comfortable. So if it's comfortable to at least do it with the hat, okay, let's try that. Let's try one without it.
Right.
You know, whatever makes them feel safe and comfortable. Sometimes people use clothes to make them safe.
What do you mean? Is my scarf giving me away? What?
I love your scarf.
Howard,
I'm usually a scarf girl.
Baseball caps can also be just turned around.
Yeah.
So that
but what if you want to see all that hair? Like, I love the hair.
Then you just ask them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I always feel a little guilty, but I'm like, take off that hat. And I always feel like I'm being a bit rude because I think it is something that's a comfort. But
how they had a bad hair day. We all have them. I'm pulled back.
If you're auditioning a scene that happens in a car, do you self-tape from the side?
That's a good question. You mean like you're driving?
Or driving, or you're the passenger, like there's decisions to be made. Do you commit to the side view, or do you keep your face on camera?
I think you should keep your face on camera. I think for the most part, and there'll be a couple of, I'm sure, executives and producers we've once worked with that were just very literal, but for the most part, we can imagine what you'll look like in the backseat in the middle. You don't have to demonstrate that for us.
So they don't have to learn how to take a punch in the face?
For the most part, no.
Not in a car.
For the most part, no.
You never know.
A
tree branch could come swimming through the windshield. Who knows? But like those action intense scenes, I find that I would say all of us tend to go away from the action-y audition scene because it doesn't help us find the character.
anything that I'm sure, again, I'm sure we do very similar things with our jobs. If I'm reading sides and I see this or one scene that is so physical, it's
Mm.
not the it's not the scene I'm going to choose to do. It's going to not play in an audition space. We want to just find the scenes that are going to set them up for success.
Right.
If there is some action in the scene, I get asked that question a lot. I think it's fine to, there's some indication that needs to happen, that they understand that there's some physicality. And if they're supposed to be aggressive, sometimes stepping forward in the middle of their audition can help just show us that they understand that there would be some confrontation. And if they're supposed to be scared, sometimes one step back can give them that same feeling and give us the understanding that they understand what's happening in the scene in that moment. They don't have to go crazy forward, backwards, all over the place. You can do smaller. This little box is all we need to see them create that world in. So
Do you feel like the ring ring takes you out of the scene if someone is indicating a phone ring or a doorbell? If you have the reader giving some sound effect that's necessary,
Like that.
does that help or harm them?
I think it can help actors, but I think it's also dependent on the scene. Sometimes it needs a loud bang, and if you can get your reader.
It really depends.
Yeah.
I am jumping on what Krisha said. It depends on the scene. If it's a scene that takes place in school and all of a sudden the bell rings and you know you have to go to class, that's that jolt that you might need, especially if it's important to what's happening in the scene. There's something that a lot of actors don't do. They don't read the stage directions. And very often it's just the simplest thing. It'll say at the end of the scene, it'll say, Susan storms off. And then the end of the scene ends and she's still standing there. And you're like, you could have, that would have,
Right.
yeah, that would have just put the button at the end of the scene. So just things like that I know we all look for. And if we include it with your sides, and it'd be great if you tried it and be open to it.
Especially if there's an arrow or a star beside the stage direction, that would be a good indication that we want to see that.
Krisha, do you do that? Because I definitely do that. I
Underline, star, arrow,
yeah,
all of three of them sometimes.
map it because it's a roadmap.
Yeah.
It's a roadmap, and every writer writes differently. I think Suzanne and I had a conversation a long time ago about a producer writer that we work with that didn't put in stage directions. So a lot of our day was spent giving the actor something that would have been in the sides, but that's what we do.
Yeah.
And you trained in that. I feel like that's a really theatrical, that's a stage play situation. There's not a lot of stage direction in plays that when you read them, the way there are in film scripts, it's so laid out in film scripts. And then she took a nap and then she went for a while. You're like, okay. On the other side of it, let's say an actor really connects with the role and in their slate, they are like, not only did I study German in high school, but I went to live in Germany for 6 months. Do you like hearing the personal attachment to a role in the person's slate? How do you feel about like a prepared moment? I don't know, like, I don't know how to say it. If the actor just loves this role so much and just needs to share that with you.
I think there are subtle ways to be able to do that feel organic to your slate. I had a role that I cast a few weeks ago. This was for a mom role, and the character spoke Portuguese. And when an actress slated, and it was just very casual how she slated her name, and she said it in Portuguese, and it from the very moment it made me go, oh, I'm going to pay even closer attention because she actually is fluent. And then before we set them up for producers, I told the actor, remember what you did? Do that again.
Yeah.
And if I didn't like what you did, I would tell you.
So it's like a casual confidence to it.
I like the way you put that, Monika.
Okay.
I like that too. I also have seen though, when people really feel attached to the script, I think it's nice to have that extra little bit of knowledge that I read this script and I loved this script, and here's the reason why. And, you know, give us that little extra bit of personal. I mean, you can tell when it's made up, and you can tell when it is organic too. They really did connect with something specific, because it's always so specific that it couldn't be fake, I guess.
May I add to what Krisha just said? I was casting a film a few years ago, and I had the director, writer in the room. And when someone says, "Do you have any questions?" this is like a perfect time to ask a question. And the character that the actress was auditioning for, it could be interpreted many ways, but the question is she real, or is other characters in his imagination? So a lot of the actresses would say, "Oh, is she real?" And my director would say to them, "What do you think?" And then all of a sudden they start talking about the script and talking about the character, and the auditions disappeared. It became a work session. And it just became so comfortable because everyone there would imagine what it would be like working with this person. Here's the negative part of it. There are a lot of actresses who didn't read the script. They had no idea what was going on. So if you're auditioning for a project and it seems basic enough and the script is available, please read it.
And ask to read it, yeah?
And if there is no script available, on most, like I'm episodic, I'm not handing out the script. If the show's been on the air, you should definitely have sampled the show so you get an idea of the tone of the show.
You're talking high tech now.
Oh,
Sample the show. Have you watched an episode?
Yeah.
Watched an episode, yes.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So if it's a show that's been on, like if I had an audition, okay, this is bad. Krisha, is Henry Danger still on? Are you still casting?
I'm not still casting, but we have the remake.
Is that Danger Force?
Danger Force.
Is the tone similar?
Yes.
Okay, so if you were auditioning for Krisha and you were a lapsed viewer and hadn't watched Henry Danger for a while, there's ways to watch it. You could go to the Nick website. I bet if you go to YouTube, there'll be something. Get an idea of the tone of the show and get an idea of the tone of what the guest characters are, because very often writers write in a formula, and it'll give you some idea of perhaps what could be expected for your audition. And these are things that I don't always know that a 9-year-old would do, but I definitely believe a 15-year-old should definitely be able to do.
Incredible. You guys, you're so smart. Gabrielle, what am I forgetting? Am I forgetting anything?
I'm not forgetting anything. I am literally listening to you guys. I'm smiling. I'm thinking about this. Actually, of course, pertains not only to children, but to adults. But I'm listening to you and wanting to jump in. So this is a perfect time. Thank you. This is great. I have a question, because you're talking about something. We are really living in interesting times. We know almost that, because of particularly the pandemic, and you talked about, this is a new way. This is going to be a way that's going to be staying with us for a while, if not forever. And as a result, we're learning technology in a way that we better learn it if we're going to be able to utilize it. But one of the things that I always loved, and the technology sometimes makes it challenging, I've always loved the in-person audition, because there is a relationship, a breathing relationship with the casting person, the people who are in the room. There's an energy. And I know now that you talk about when you're doing it by Zoom, but these self-tapes, it's difficult because there's not always a lot of background, particularly for episodics, right? You have I break down for the character. You've hopefully seen the show, but you don't necessarily know where the character is going to go. You've been given a scene or two. And there's not, and it's not a Zoom, it's a self-tape. So we don't talk about how can people, if they have questions, what kind of questions, what if they're so off in their interpretation? I can make choices, but those choices, they're based on, because I want to give structure to the character. I want to give it a living voice, but it might not be the direction. And I'm not there with you guys to hear, like Gabrielle, make this adjustment. How would you suggest approaching these self-tapes without that kind of feedback?
Well, if there's an interpretation that you have that you're not sure is the one, if you read it and go, oh, well, I can see this go 3 different ways, check in with your agent, have the casting director, talk to the casting director. Is there a particular vision you're looking? She has an idea of these 3 different ways, you know, and we'll give you some sort of response. I've had some tapes where people have given a couple of interpretations in it. It was like, okay, I'll watch it. Let's see what that is. You know, yeah, sometimes you can go a bunch of different ways, but always taking your strongest, when you first pick up that script and you read that, who do I think this person is? Go for it. And then we can always touch base with you and say, hey, you know what? I get what you did. Can you just try this adjustment to it? Because we'll do that as well.
Is it a mistake if you're self-taping and you want to give 2 versions? Is that a mistake? Is that too confusing? Do you feel like they don't?
Well, I think first of all, you should ask if you know, I think you should ask, but sometimes they come through that way. I think you want to make your strongest choice and go for it.
Great. That's great feedback. Rebecca, did you have anything that you wanted to?
Yeah, we had a great question from one of the member parents. Now that my son is approaching 13, that there seem to be fewer and farther between in terms of auditions. And the parent has heard that it's a tougher age in terms of opportunities and casting. Is that true? And do you have advice for this parent and 13-year-old?
I think, yeah, go ahead, Howard.
There are different hills and valleys for any actor's career. And I started in New York working in an office and casting commercials. And my observation is that there was a lot of auditions for kids that were like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then it seemed, I called it the first acting middle age, meaning I just didn't see roles written for an 11-year-old. I would see roles written for younger kids. I would see roles written for young teens or older teens, but it felt like 11 was like an age that I just didn't see a lot in breakdowns. So here's the good news. If your son is 13, I am confident eventually he'll be 14 and then 15. And if there aren't a lot of auditions, just focus on other things that make you happy. And it doesn't mean you have to be on a TV show. You could do shows in school. I don't know if you can. I'm giving 2019 advice.
Yes.
But you could find something else that could fulfill you. And then there will be more roles. There's no way of like stopping 13.
Yeah, and 13 is so hard, especially, I mean, I have one nephew. He's my favorite nephew. He is my only nephew. But he is so spaced out and so trapped in his body and in adolescence right now. I can't even get him to open the grocery bag. Like, we have to put it in the bag. And so I think 13 is a particularly tough age for boys. I think girls have a tough time right around 11 and boys around 13, just because of the changes in their bodies. Like, it's just chaos. And I think that when you're planning a shoot and you have a 13-year-old role, you're going to cast 4 seconds before you're shooting because you don't want their voice to change, their bodies to change, their height to change, their voice, like, it just goes and you have nothing to count on. So I do think that there is a little something there. And certainly on the film side, we talk about 13-year-old boys and 11-year-old girls a lot. Like, let's hold off or let's go older to play younger because the change has already happened.
I also think it has to do with what's happening in the industry, and I mean, and that's always changing. And what's the trend right now?
Mhm.
Maybe it's not for that age group. I remember at one point, I felt like when Howard and I were doing iCarly and Hannah Montana, it was we were casting the exact same ages every year. And then it sort of shifted to a little bit older. And then now it's shifted to, like, at one point we were looking for 14 and 15-year-olds. And then it's back right now to sort of 10 to 12-year-olds. And it just shifts and changes. But that's one of the best things about being an actor, is that it's a job that you get to do from birth till the end of your life. I mean, it's the greatest job in the planet. That we always need people of every age, every stage, every look to populate our projects. So it's an fantastic opportunity to, as Howard was mentioning, explore other things that will
Use
enrich
it.
the acting when the roles show back up again. You
Right.
just never know what the trend is with the writing, at least.
Mhm.
How do you guys deal with, you talked about age, and I know that, of course, 18 and over, you're not supposed to talk about age. And many of you know I lied about my age to 90210. So I want to ask, what do you suggest? People want the opportunity to be able to audition. If they have a look, let's say they really do look 9, and they're 12, right? Are you not going to, and it has to be, I guess, a real honest truth to this, like how people want to be able to come into the room to audition. How do they deal with that? They look young, but they're older, and
It's just part of who they are.
Yes.
I
We
feel
see
like,
them anyway.
yeah,
we
we
see
see them. We want to know who they are as
Yeah.
actors so that we can process them in the future for other roles. We can see them for this role if they play 9 and it's a 9-year-old role, or if it's a 12-year-old role and she looks 9, like, okay,
Yeah.
hey, it's
It
just
really has,
that's
I think
special
it has,
about that person.
sorry, it does. I think for me, at least, it has to do with hours.
Right.
More than anything else, is that based on, child labor law hours. So it benefits if they are older to play younger. That's more of a benefit because we will get them then for that 1 extra hour of work is huge in an episodic.
Right.
that's great. Thank you for that. I have a question here that was sent in. It says, do you put out casting calls or backstage for children and their parents to submit directly to you? Have a preference or platforms?
I missed part of that.
Do you put out casting calls to Actors Access or backstage for children and their parents to submit directly to you, especially if they don't have representation? Do you have a preference of platforms where people can submit directly?
It depends if there's a special skill that I might be looking for and I want to do a broader search. I will release it on Actors Access because it's just easy for my office to sort the submissions. But be very thoughtful if we're asking if the description says the character is a 9-year-old girl, please don't submit your 14-year-old daughter, especially when she doesn't look 9. So be accurate, and that's the hardest thing that I found with using Actors Access, where people either overstate abilities, don't actually live in Los Angeles, or 5 to 8 years off from the age. So if we see it, we're gonna remember people who are right, and you don't want to give a bad impression and submit. You're totally so wrong for a role.
And I will say, in defense of actors that have agents and managers, we're holding the agents and managers accountable for pitching the proper actors. So when you're not represented, you don't have that security blanket of an agent. Like, that's tricky. So you have to really think like an agent. You have to leave your body and the love of your child, and you have to say, no, wait, hold on a second. Is this real? Because we're going to punish the agents and managers for not telling us the truth, but we won't punish the human being that loves their child. Do you know what I mean? So
and also, I'd like to add, just to Howard's point, I think it's really important also to remember on Actors Access, make sure that the pictures are up to date, because to your point, oftentimes you'll submit a picture of your kid, but it's from a couple of years ago, and clearly that won't work because that kid has aged now a couple of years, so they're going to look different and be different, and their whole physicality has changed. So just make sure you're, updating regularly and, submitting, as accurately as you possibly can.
Can you talk really quickly? And I just want to say real quick, Cameron Manheim just joined us. She's our secretary treasurer, fabulous actress. Her son is an actor. Many of you know Milo, so I'm sure she has questions. But I do want to ask you guys another question. This is about pictures. I hear from people all the time, I have to go and have all these different looks, and it's so expensive to have pictures done. Can you talk about what you're looking for when you're looking for a photo? Are you looking at a whole array of looks for an individual? What do you want from that photo?
I want a true representation of who it is that's coming in the room. And if there's a way to give us a sense of who they are, I usually don't look past 1 or 2 photos. I don't need to see 17 pictures. I've often said that the hair, makeup, and wardrobe departments are much larger than casting. So we're going to make sure that they have what they need. We just want the talent, and I want to know that the person that I'm looking at is the person that's going to come in the room or send their audition, and that if they have significantly changed, that's the time to get a new headshot. I don't necessarily think you need all of that. I think that that's something that perhaps agents and managers like because it makes their job a little easier.
Right.
I could be wrong there.
I agree with Krisha. I think that you should be able to look like your headshot. And when I've met the actor before and I'm looking out in the waiting room and I can't find you because I'm looking at your headshot and it looks nothing like you, it's time for new headshots. It should look like you on any Tuesday morning at 10:20 a.m. meaning without a lot of fuss. And I've made this joke. I said it shouldn't look like your parents' wedding picture because often they look nothing like that. And it should just be you on a casual Tuesday. And if you have incredibly wavy, curly, corkscrew hair, but your headshot has it blown out, and it doesn't look like you, well, then maybe that's the time you do need another headshot. But other than that, no.
Or blow dryer.
Oh, to have a curl would be so beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. I think as a blank canvas is great for us to be able to sort of look at you and figure out all these other fabulous characters that you can inhabit, but let us do that part of it. You present us your beautiful blank canvas slate or face, in the best possible way that you can, and we'll take it from there.
Perfect. That's so helpful because people really go and spend a lot of money for a billion different looks and they don't realize you're just looking for the human being, right? So
I had this conversation with an actress today, the same one, a grown-up actress, and she was showing me all these theatrical headshots. And I said, you don't need these. I don't need to see you in scrubs with a stethoscope around you. I have an imagination. Just give me 2 shots and they don't have to be theatrical.
I think sometimes what happens is people think, well, in the commercial auditions, they want all this. And so they want it for everything else. And they're afraid that you're not going to have that vision and they need to have more faith in that. So that's very helpful. I want to, you guys, this has been so great. I could just go forever and ever. And we have other questions, but I see time is changing or going a little bit longer. Cameron, did you have anything that having Milo as a son and being in this industry for so long, is there a question you have or a statement?
Well, I do. I have a thought and then a question. I've worked with a lot of children in my life, and they always say don't work with children and animals, but that's not true. There are so many wonderful children, and there are good stage parents and annoying stage parents, and I might fall into that category for all I know. But I would love for someone to talk to the fact of what makes a good stage parent. How can they best assist the process, and not be thought of as annoying, because we really just want our children to thrive and also to have a great experience. So what can we do to be helpful?
Could we have Krisha answer this? Because she has the best answer I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the fade into the wall?
No.
Yeah.
Did you use the term secret? They should be like the Secret Service.
Secret Service, yeah. When we were doing an episode of iCarly, we were lucky enough to have Michelle Obama, but it meant a week of learning about Secret Service and White House staff and all the things. And I gave my office up to the Secret Service because they needed an office. And what was most fascinating about them was that they appear and then disappear because they virtually fade into the walls around Mrs. Obama and only emerge when necessary. And I sort of feel that a wonderful stage parent is observing, making sure there's nothing there, fading into the wall, but being present every time their kid needs them.
Yeah.
And that sort of is my best analogy. You want to make sure that you're there, that you're watching at all times in that same Secret Service way.
I
On
so
set.
feel that.
On
Totally
set,
agree.
you don't come into the auditions.
Well, I just,
Gosh, yes,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
need to applaud you and thank you, because all the experiences my son have been really extremely positive, and felt like the casting directors were their cheerleaders. And honestly, without the casting director who found and discovered him, he'd have a completely different life. So when casting directors aren't there to be feared, they are really truly your cheerleaders. And I just wish more actors would fully understand what an amazing part you play in the whole process. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you so much.
One of the great things that I started to notice, I'm just going to finish this up with casting, because you know what, sometimes you really are the unsung heroes. I've talked to so many people in casting who said, you know, I helped to start so-and-so's career. And I feel like sometimes I disappeared into the backdrop, and yet I loved being a part of that. I like seeing their journey. I'm proud of that. And I just have to put out there how many actors, I've noticed this now through the award shows, actors finally coming up and saying and saluting the work that you do. So I'm sharing that because they share it off the screen or in the private rooms with me, but I hear it from members all the time. They really appreciate everything that you do, and the fact, I know I do, but that it's, you just need to hear it. You need to hear it out loud. You need to hear it out loud, right? So
We are your biggest fans.
We are. We are.
Breaking records. In 10 years, we're going to bring you in and you're like, why? What?
Yep. I have a Cameron Manheim fan favorite story that I read. I heard her speak about playing cribbage, and it stuck with me forever and ever.
Does me too. She did that at our convention. She shared it, and it was life changing. It's really a great story. Cam has good stories to share. We always say she's the great storyteller. I want to say thank you all for being here. Monika, you did that beautifully, moderating, and thank you for this discussion. Thank you. As I said, our members really are looking to move ahead in this crazy world right now. And these are moments, what you've shared here actually allows them to be able to move forward. So thank you for that. On behalf of the team here at SAG-AFTRA, we want to say thank you for taking time to be with us. It has been an incredible pleasure. You can see how much I've enjoyed this. I want to say a special thanks again to all of you for being here, and for everybody who's watching. You're tuning in each week for our President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement live streams. It's meaningful. We hope it helps. If you haven't already, while you're here, please subscribe to SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel. Get updates on the great content we're posting, all the great things that are being shared here. And I want to wish you all again a beautiful, beautiful new year. Thank Rebecca and Cameron for being here as well. And to all of you, take care of yourselves. God bless.